Welcome to Capitol Catch-Up, your in-depth look at the latest proceedings and legislation from the halls of Congress. I am Victor.
And I am Lenny. Today we are diving into a wide array of legislative proposals, intense floor debates, and a long list of executive and judicial nominations. Let us start with some major policy shifts being proposed in the Senate. One of the most talked about bills is Senate Bill 304, also known as the Birthright Citizenship Act of 2025.
This bill was introduced by Senators Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, and Katie Britt. It seeks to narrow the criteria for automatic birthright citizenship in the United States. Under current practice, children born on American soil are automatically citizens. Senate Bill 304 proposes amending the Immigration and Nationality Act so that a child born in the United States is only considered subject to the jurisdiction of the country and therefore eligible for citizenship at birth if at least one parent is a U.S. citizen, a lawful permanent resident, or an alien in lawful status serving in the United States Armed Forces.
It is a significant proposed shift in immigration policy, though the bill explicitly states these changes would not apply retroactively to individuals born before the bill is enacted. It has been referred to the Committee on the Judiciary, where we can expect a lot of debate.
On the disaster preparedness front, we have Senate Bill 388, the Promoting Resilient Buildings Act, introduced by Senators Cornyn and Fetterman. This bill aims to amend the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act to enhance national disaster preparedness. It does this by updating building standards and establishing a temporary residential retrofit pilot program.
This is a bill that could directly impact everyday Americans. Under this pilot program, the FEMA administrator would provide grants to state and local governments, which would then assist individuals in retrofitting their homes against natural hazards like floods, tornadoes, wildfires, and seismic events. The program would prioritize individuals with demonstrated financial need. It has a sunset provision in 2030 and requires a comprehensive report to Congress to evaluate how well it reduces disaster-related impacts and federal expenditures.
Moving from Earth to space, Senate Bill 434 is the Space Commerce Advisory Committee Act. It mandates that the Secretary of Commerce establish a 15-member advisory committee to support the growth and regulation of the U.S. commercial space industry.
This committee will consist of experts from fields like engineering, law, and finance. They will provide recommendations to Congress and the Department of Commerce on fostering a competitive, safe, and sustainable space sector. They will focus on navigating international obligations, export controls, radio frequency spectrum access, and even the environmental protection of celestial bodies. The committee is designed to operate for a 10-year term.
Now let us talk about health and medical research. Senate Bill 1838, the Deandra Dixon Include Project Act of 2026, mandates that the National Institutes of Health establish a comprehensive research, training, and investigation program dedicated to Down syndrome.
That is right. The legislation directs the National Institutes of Health to prioritize high-impact studies on the biological mechanisms of trisomy 21, expand clinical trials to be more inclusive of individuals with Down syndrome, and investigate co-occurring conditions like Alzheimer's disease and autoimmunity. It also requires coordination across NIH centers and biennial reports to Congress to improve diagnostic tools and therapeutic interventions.
There is also Senate Bill 2398, the Kay Hagan Tick Reauthorization Act. This bill extends federal funding and support for programs addressing tick-borne and other vector-borne diseases through 2030. By amending the Public Health Service Act, it ensures the continued operation of national strategies, regional centers of excellence, and assistance for local health departments in managing these public health threats.
We also have two bills aimed at government transparency and oversight. First, Senate Bill 252, known as the Guidance Out of Darkness Act, or the GOOD Act. This bill requires federal agencies to publish all active and future guidance documents, including memoranda, bulletins, and policy interpretations, in a single, centralized, and easily accessible online location.
This is aimed at making non-binding agency policies and interpretations much easier for the public to find and understand. It also includes provisions for keeping records of rescinded documents, while still protecting information that is exempt under the Freedom of Information Act.
The second oversight bill is Senate Bill 164, the Midnight Rules Relief Act of 2025, introduced by Senator Ron Johnson and several co-sponsors. This bill targets midnight rules, which are regulations finalized during the final year of a presidential term.
It proposes amending the Congressional Review Act to allow Congress to consider multiple resolutions of disapproval for these rules simultaneously through an en bloc process. In legislative terms, en bloc means they can vote on a group of these resolutions all at once, rather than one by one, making the rejection of late-term regulations much faster. The bill has been referred to the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs.
That same committee is also looking at several post office renaming bills that have passed the House. Let us list those quickly. House Resolution 323 designates a facility in Avon, New York as the Officer Anthony Mazurkiewicz Memorial Post Office Building.
Senate Bill 58, introduced by Senators Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, proposes renaming a facility in Fritch, Texas, as the Chief Zeb Smith Post Office.
Senate Bill 24 from Senators Mike Crapo and Jim Risch would rename a facility in Jerome, Idaho, as the Representative Maxine Bell Post Office.
House Resolution 1009 designates a facility in Haverstraw, New York, as the Paul Piperato Post Office Building.
House Resolution 1008 names a facility in Holmes, New York, as the Sheriff Adrian Butch Anderson Post Office Building.
House Resolution 1372 designates a facility in Knoxville, Tennessee as the Reverend Harold Middlebrook Post Office Building.
And House Resolution 1830 names a facility in Castleton, North Dakota as the Commander Delbert Austin Olson Post Office.
Now let us look at the daily proceedings in the Senate from early August 2026. The congressional record from August 4th shows some very intense partisan debates over economic policy, government funding, and executive appointments.
Republican leadership on the floor touted the success of the working families' tax cuts, highlighting permanent tax rate reductions, increased child tax credits, and new deductions for tips and overtime.
Meanwhile, Democratic leadership strongly opposed the nomination of Todd Blanche for Attorney General, citing ethical concerns. They also criticized the administration's plans to roll back Head Start standards and its handling of the reflecting pool renovation. The session ended with a heated exchange over government funding, with both parties trading blame for past shutdowns and accusing each other of prioritizing political gain over federal stability.
The next day, August 5th, the focus shifted toward agriculture and trade. Senate Majority Leader John Thune highlighted the introduction of a new 5-year farm bill. This bill aims to strengthen the agricultural safety net, modernize loan programs, improve conservation efforts, and establish permanent year-round access to E15 fuel.
The Senate also resumed consideration of House Resolution 6500, the African Growth and Opportunity Act Extension Act, which extends duty-free trade with certain African nations. This involved a complex series of procedural maneuvers, including multiple amendments and the filing of cloture motions to expedite the legislative process. A cloture motion is a procedure used to limit debate and bring a proposal to a vote.
The Senate also moved to proceed to Senate Bill 4668, the Protect College Sports Act of 2026, which aims to regulate name, image, and likeness rights for student athletes, and initiated a move to executive session for pending nominations.
We have a long list of recent nominations submitted to the Senate. Let us go through them. For diplomatic roles, we have John Breslow of Arizona to be ambassador to the Republic of Cyprus, Michael Kavukshin of Florida to be ambassador to the Kingdom of Norway, and Todd Stegerda of Virginia to be representative of the United States to the Office of the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva, with the rank of ambassador.
For judicial and legal positions, Christopher Michael DeBono and Sharon E. Goody, both of the District of Columbia, have been nominated to be Associate Judges of the Superior Court of the District of Columbia for 15-year terms. Charlton Allen of North Carolina has been nominated to be General Counsel of the Federal Labor Relations Authority for a 5-year term.
For executive branch agencies, Edward Epler of Connecticut is nominated to be Chief Financial Officer of the Department of Transportation. Sri Prakash Katari of Massachusetts is nominated to be an Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. Glenn Smith of Iowa is nominated to be Undersecretary of Agriculture for Rural Development, and Michael Vance of Virginia is nominated to be an Assistant Secretary of State for Intelligence and Research.
We also have Frank Garcia of Virginia, nominated to the Board of Directors of the African Development Foundation, Michael McDonald of the District of Columbia to be Chairperson of the National Endowment for the Humanities, and Karen Sessions of Texas to be a Commissioner of the Consumer Product Safety Commission for a 7-year term.
Finally, Bradford Pentony Wilson of New Jersey has been nominated to be Archivist of the United States, and Kevin Lilly of Texas has been nominated to be Assistant Secretary for Fish and Wildlife.
As we wrap up today, what should our listeners watch out for? Keep an eye on the progress of the newly introduced 5-year Farm Bill, as well as the ongoing debate over the African Growth and Opportunity Act Extension Act as those cloture motions play out.
Also, watch for any movement on Senate Bill 304 regarding birthright citizenship in the Senate Judiciary Committee and the upcoming confirmation hearings for these key agency and judicial nominees. That is all for Capital Catch-Up today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, and we will see you next time.